Hey, today I want to talk to you about your integrity, your ability to follow through in a day where lives are kind of disintegrated, meaning they're not integrated. People are overwhelmed a little bit, they're not following through. If you can be a person of integrity, somebody who follows through, recognizing the consequences of what they're doing and carrying things out well, you will stand out. You will be trusted. You will be solid and sound. That's what the word integrity means. So I want to talk about receiving responsibility and accepting responsibility as a function, really, of your integrity. It may sound real conceptual. I want to be practical, and I think this can be helpful. So, first of all, to receive your responsibility from a spiritual perspective, from a Christian perspective, the first thing to receive is your adoption. God reached in and included you into his eternal family. That's a personal adoption, and it's also a familial adoption, meaning that you have been included in a family. You have brothers and sisters. You're not alone. So you're not alone vertically. You've been included into the family, and you are a son or daughter, and he dwells in your being. But you've also been adopted into a family where you are not alone, because you're related to others. Now, as part of this kind of receiving responsibility, first comes your placement. And this could be really a big placement, a capital P placement, a placement from God, which is where He's put you in your roles. Primarily, I define it that way, that in your roles in relationships are actually a placement of God. They're not happenstance. You have been placed, delegated with authority to be in that space, but you could also be placed with a small p, meaning that it could be an assignment at work or an assignment into a small group at school, or there's a capital P placement from heaven and there are small p placements on earth. Both matter for you to receive your placement, your kind of responsibility in that setting. Now, that placement could also carry a calling. It could be related to your calling of what you offer the world, or it could be more of a specific assignment. So there's placement and there's assignment. The assignment could align with your calling on the earth, or it could be an assignment that you're carrying out temporally or in the short term. Whatever the case, that receiving responsibility in that placement, in that assignment, has some specifics to it. First of all, no matter what it is, if you're a believer, I want to encourage you to be in a place of intercession, a place where you step between heaven and what's going on earth, and you want to release resources of heaven into this space on earth. So it could be that your assignment has to do with a work situation. You might be interceding, praying, releasing things of heaven on into the team that you work with or into the business that you're working in. And that means to be praying for God's perspective, for his resources, for things to be done in accordance with the design of God. Sometimes we think that the things of heaven or the things with the kingdom are only for believers. Not true. The things of the kingdom of God are how life works for everybody. It's just that believers have a kind of an inside access by the presence and power of the Holy Spirit. But one of the first things in your assignment to do is to be a person of prayer, a person of intercession, a person who stands in between what's in heaven and what needs to take place on earth. Secondly, you want to be a person of service. And when you intercede or when you are serving, you want to do it well. You want to serve people for their betterment, for their wholeness, for their fulfillment. And if you are following through, you are going to be adding value to their life. If you live in that space of intercession and you live in that space of service, God's going to give you wisdom from heaven. You want to be somebody who is receiving this, because if you're receiving the responsibility, you can also receive wisdom for how to carry it out. Now, an important part, a part that we don't hear a lot about these days, is that we're going to receive the wisdom from God, insights on how to live, but we also need to receive accountability, that we're accountable to God for that placement, for that assignment, for that calling, that we would be intercessing, that we would be serving, that we would be doing all this, one, for the glory of God, two, for the betterment of the individuals, three, for the betterment of the environment, and four, it always brings fulfillment to us too. So again, responsibility is to do things with a due or a right amount of care for the consequences that are involved. So if somebody's irresponsible, they do things unaware of the consequences. If somebody's responsible, they do due diligence to do things in alignment with what the consequences will be. Follow through is part of responsibility. And what we want to do is follow through because we're building that integrity, soundness, wholeness in our relationship with God. And we're building that integrity so that we trust ourselves. And we're building that soundness and integrity so that others can trust us. So we want to receive our responsibility from God. We want to be people who receive our responsibility. But we also need to accept responsibility. So we might receive all that. The question is, are we going to move into it? Are we going to do it? And so the question is, are you going to receive it and accept it as coming from God, or are you going to accept it on your own? Some people are kind of what I'll call hyper responsible. Their identity is tied to them following through. I am a person of responsibility. And that can lead, when people accept responsibility that God or others haven't given them, but that they're choosing and thinking that they're going to be the responsible one, there's a potential or a temptation to run roughshod. That's not an expression we use very much these days because it actually comes from the days of horse riding. And so roughshod in its meaning means when you put a horseshoe on, but you leave the nails not all the way tapped in. And that gives that horse extra traction. So roughshod itself really means to kind of, if it's a negative term, and it means to kind of have tyrannical rule. Somebody roughshod is running over others. When we take on responsibility, when we accept responsibility that others have not given us or that God hasn't given us, we do have a tendency to run over other people. So we want to accept it from God and kind of under God in an agreement with God. When we do that, so now we're going to accept the responsibility from God. Now we got to recognize our resources. And are we going to try to follow through on our own resources, our own abilities, our own devices? That's how we naturally think. That's how everything that comes into us kind of programs us to use the resources we have. This is what you have. Can have kind of a scarcity mentality. It could be that we have resources and we recognize that our resources are not just that we're doing it alone, but that actually we have other people with us, working in teams, working with the abilities that they have, so that we're not just living on our own. That can be really valuable. But we also have the resources of the power of God, particularly when we have received the kind of call or the placement from God. Now we have the ability to interact with God and use God's resources. For us to accept the responsibility, to be responsible as opposed to irresponsible, now we do it. It doesn't count to accept responsibility and not do the thing. We've done all this, we've received it, and now we're accepting and wanting to stand into it. Now we need to do it. And when we accept that call to do it, we step in with authority. Now that authority, is that authority coming from God, if he's assigned you, or you have a sense of his leadership and it aligns with what his kingdom looks like? He's given you authority from heaven to accomplish it. That's really important. His authority. But you could also have authority that's just in yourself. That's not necessarily bad. But you want, you need to be honest with yourself. Do I really have the authority to do this? You can look around and see if you are the person to fulfill this task. If so, you're standing in your authority. That's different than standing in God's, which is, it's sovereign. It's bigger than that. But your authority counts too. You can also derive your authority from position, meaning the assignment of others. Could be your position, your station at work. Could be your position even in the family, where somebody in the family, let's say your parents have assigned you to do something that gives you authority to carry it out, or your siblings may assign you, they agree that you're the one to do it. Now you're not just standing in your own authority, you're standing in authority even from your siblings. Again, when we accept our responsibility, we're acting into it, we do need to recognize, again, that idea of accountability. Our accountability is first of all to God. Are we doing it in a way that aligns with how He does things? Truthful, loving, humble, caring, kind of the fruit of the Spirit. So we're accountable kind of for how we do and whether we fulfill it well. We're also accountable to ourselves, as I mentioned. That helps us to become, we trust ourselves. When we trust ourselves, we don't have to second, third, fourth guess ourselves. We have an impression from God, seems to line up with what God does. We trust Him. We have developed a kind of follow through, an integrity, an ability to stand in responsibility, and we can trust ourselves. And as I mentioned earlier, others can trust us too. Recognize we never live without accountability. There's always accountability. Don't ever think you're doing stuff and it doesn't matter how or it doesn't matter what. It does. You have accountability to God, and your inner person knows whether you're following through rightly or not, and others do too. Even the secret things. The secret things that you do you're accountable to God, you're accountable to yourself. Others might not know about it, but that accountability helps you develop that personality, that lifestyle of integrity, that lifestyle of responsibility. So I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today, because I know in our day, there's not a lot of integrity, not a lot of follow through. And it's hard. It's hard for all of us when we're bombarded with all the stuff and all the things we could do. And we could read that book and we could take that course and we could do this thing, we could do this thing. And there's lots of things pulling on us. That's where we need to pull back, clarify priorities with God, clarify our purpose, and then we want to be a person of responsibility, a person of deep integrity. Have a great day. Walk in sound wholeness, integrity, and responsibility. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.